Hi, welcome again to Selling with Style. This is a session on smart buyers. And again, as we get started, I want to thank you for taking time to invest in your professional development. This is one of a series of programs that explains the Likeability System. For a complete listing, please contact me at rapportbuilders.com. Hopefully you have paper handy to take some notes because I'm going to give you a lot of information. Our agenda is we're going to focus on the learning style, its values, the vocal qualities, what they wear, how they behave, and even the occupations that they tend to enjoy. My thoughts is that the most people are stuck in only one way of communicating and one way of presenting information as a seller. The best salespeople outsell the average 57-1. That's a statistic that comes from the Word of Mouth Advertising Association. That's a big gap. So if you want to close that gap and become more skillful, I recommend that you learn how to become a chameleon. A chameleon has the ability to shift and change according to their environment. So they are green when they're on the leaf and they're brown when they're on the rock. Well, the best salespeople shift themselves to match their prospects. And my goal is to help you get unstuck, to help you expand your ability so that you can comfortably and easily shift yourself to match your prospect. And we do that through the Likeability System. There are 5 steps in the Likeability System, and let me define that word likability. Since I coined it, it means a skill that raises the perception of being alike the other person. It's a skill. Hence, you can learn it, and I can teach it, and I teach it very well. So let's take a look at the Likeability System. 5 easy steps. 1, define the fact that there are 4 different ways people communicate and sell, as well as buy. 2, know what your own style is because we tend to communicate and present from that style. Hence, we're only connecting authentically 1 out of 4 times. 3, diagnose your prospect style. That's what we're going to talk about and learn today. 4, duplicate your prospect style. This is where you become likable. This is where they relax and they feel like you get me, we're alike. And finally, you need to downplay and discard those aspects in yourself that are a mismatch, that are getting in the way of your being an effective seller. So as I said, we're going to focus on step 3, diagnosing your prospect style. And we're going to look through the LENS personality system. LENS is an acronym that stands for learning, energizing, networking, and stabilizing. And our focus today is on that learning style. So what are its values? The learning style, when they make a choice to buy something, it's got to be that they're buying information. Yes, that's what they're buying: data, information, scientific evidence, research. They're buying solutions. You see, they're problem solvers, and that's what they spend their money on. So the values underneath the learning style, when you talk these value words, you're going to make an instant bond and connection with the learning buyer. Because the number one thing they value is to learn. This is a person who is constantly reading and thinking and analyzing and gathering information and doing research. I mean, they love surfing the web. They tend to be smart people, intelligent, but they absolutely value intelligence in someone else. And closely akin to intelligence is what I call competence. That's applied intelligence. It's the know-how, again, to get something done. And these people are big picture thinkers. They're able to see the large picture, the large view, the large perspective. They're kind of dreamers, and they're able to go beyond the concrete. Two words characterize their choices. It's got to be practical and it's got to be utilitarian. Practical means it's solving a problem. Remember, they buy solutions. And utilitarian, it's got to have long-term useful value over time. These are rather slow decision makers. It takes a while to do a lot of research, to read, to make sure that they haven't missed any information. Consequently, it takes them at least 7 or more contacts before they actually can make up their minds. They do not want to prematurely come to a conclusion. And so they gather information. It takes them a while. They're doing research. They're doing their due diligence. They're thinking. And their thinking process can be fairly entangled, complex, long-term. And so hence, it takes about 7 contacts before they can make up their mind. You need a system in place so that you can continue to be in contact with this person over time. 7 or more contacts. So, vocal qualities. Chances are when they talk to you on the phone, they've already done some research to come up with your name and your phone number. So let's take a look at their vocal qualities. Remember, only 7% of what people really recall is words. So that means 85% of what you're gathering on the phone are these vocal qualities. That's a whopping amount of material that they're sensing and you're sensing. It's through their vocal qualities. And especially with the learning style, there may be a lot of disconnects due to their own style. You see, their speed, their volume, and their inflection tend to be fairly muted. They speak in a slow manner. Their rate is slow. They tend to have soft voices. Their volume is low. And they deliver the information in a monotone. There's very little or no inflection. So this is a very characteristic of the learning style. Slow, quiet, no inflection, monotone voice. So some of the other characteristics you'll notice, they pause a lot. They're looking for exactly the right word, the right phrase, because they need to be precise and exact when they speak. So there are pauses. You say something, they pause, their eyes go up, they're looking inside their brains for the answer, they pause. They ask lots of questions, and these questions are very deep, probing questions. They want to know why. They want explanations. They want to understand. They're deep thinkers. The questions are deep questions. Interestingly enough, very characteristic of the learning style, they don't necessarily say hello, and they don't actually say goodbye. If you've ever experienced somebody who just starts a conversation or at the end of a conversation literally turns their back or click goes the phone without a goodbye, that's a good indicator you've been speaking with the learning style. You see, they don't find it logical to do a lot of chit-chat. They don't enjoy it. They want to get right to the meat of the matter. And so they dive in with very little hello, very little preface or pleasantries or anything prior to getting to the topic. And when they get their answer, when they feel they've sufficient information to proceed, they don't continue the conversation and off they go. And you're left with that receiver in your hand wondering, what happened? The tone that they set is authoritative because they just simply state things, don't ask permission, just here it is, and voila. So now let's see what they wear. And the most important thing I can share with you about what they wear is they don't care. They don't care. It's about the contents of their mind and not what's on the body. And as a result, they're not too into clothing. Remember, they're practical and utilitarian. So yes, they'll choose something practical and has long life over time. So you'll notice that there's something off in their clothing selections. Things may not match. They may be out of date. In order to avoid not knowing exactly what to wear and what's fashionable, they tend to keep it very plain. And so a lot of times it's the white shirt, the khaki trousers. The women will find something equally that's very plain like that too. If they do wear some sort of pattern, they gravitate towards geometric plaids. Both genders find a uniform. Think of Steve Jobs with the black turtleneck and the jeans, even though they were designer jeans. I had a learning style woman who bought 8 blouses, silk blouses. She didn't mind spending the money on silk because, again, long life. For her, it was utilitarian. She would launder them, of course. She had 8 of them, different colors. Put them on, put a dark jacket on, a skirt, she was good to go. Notice that was very plain, it was very simple, she didn't have to think about it, it was her uniform. And the men do the same. They find a uniform to wear. Now this is a person who, remember, doesn't care about how they look, so therefore there's no hairstyle to, certainly nothing that it would be fashion forward. It's just plain, simple hair worn long or cut or bangs or whatever. No makeup. The women could care less about making themselves up because, again, it's the contents of the mind, not what they look like. And the jewelry, whether men or women, again, plain, simple. The eyeglasses that are just frames without any, just the rims, no frames, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, they don't really care. They're not into the accessories. Now, here's an interesting fact, because they really know that their clothing choices are quirky. Therefore, they tend to copy the stabilizing person. And the stabilizing person, again, has a very narrow range of colors. They tend to find the dark suit jacket, the white blouse, the white shirt, etc. But there's a big difference between the learning style and the stabilizing, even though they might on the surface have the same sort of color palette or same sort of clothing choices. And that is the stabilizing individual takes good care of their clothing. It's cleaned, it's pressed, it's shined, it gleams, it looks brand new. And the stabilizing, it's rumpled, it's got, wrinkles in it. It isn't up to par because, remember, they don't care. And as for the shoes, tie shoes, sturdy shoes, leather shoes, shoes that they can walk miles in because it's practical. Okay, so now let's turn our attention to how they behave. Starting with the fact that they're readers. Of course they're readers because they learn. And recently I was talking to somebody and out of his mouth was that word, well, I read. They go to the library, they go to the web, they always have reading material with them. And if there isn't something that they happen to have handy that they brought themselves, they will start reading the walls. They will read the brochures on the table. They read anything. And of course, they think. They don't mind just staring into space or closing their eyes or, pondering and thinking. They're good at thinking. They like to mull things over. They ask questions. As I told you, they ask really deep, provocative questions about why, explain, understand. They want to know. They want to know the innards. Because another behavior is that they're always analyzing. They're always taking things apart, putting them back together, whether it's ideas or actual items. And they're problem solvers. In fact, you may not even known you had a problem, and they've come up with a solution because they think that way. They're just always noticing a snag in the road, and they're immediately thinking how to fix it. Yes, they like to fix things, mechanical things, electrical things, computer things, language things. They are fix-it people. And they can imagine, again, that mind is, they're able to have that big picture. They value the big picture. And so they're able to imagine and go beyond what is. Very creative that way and innovative. That's what makes them good as inventors. Now, when did they arrive? When can you expect them to show up? Well, usually on time. Yeah, they could get distracted and come a little late, but they tend to know social conventions. And by and large, unless there's a reason for it, and they will be very reasonable, they'll come on time. And how they greet you, well, to be honest with you, remember, they don't say hello, they don't say goodbye, they don't offer a hand. But if you offer them your hand and you've ever had a fishy handshake, that's what I'm talking about. That would be the learning style. Yeah, they're not into touchy-feely stuff. And that includes their own emotions. Occupations, let's take a look at some of the things that they like to do. Well, science, of course, draws their attention. They love science because it's all about learning and, kind of being on the cutting edge and developing things that are new. And that's also part of research. To be a researcher, whether in the science field or some other field, they love to do research and learn. Learners, right? They're professors at the college level or at least high school, because this is a person who goes deep into their subject matter. Mechanics, remember, they're fix-it people. And a lot of people who repair items, become experts in that area. They know a lot, and it turns out their learning style. Librarians, well, they love reading material. What would you expect? That's a natural, right? Analyst, because again, they use their ability to break things apart and reassemble them and make sense out of data. And inventors, because of that ability to imagine and be creative and see the big picture and go beyond what is. So again, lots of great information. It's now up to you to transfer that knowledge into skill, which means it's time to practice. And here are some suggestions. As always, I want you to think of a male and a female example of the learning style. These people will become your measuring stick when you meet people that are new. I want you to notice whether a prospect is wearing any accessories, and if so, what type. Those horn-rimmed glasses are a telltale sign of the learning style. No jewelry, no makeup. Look for that. See if you are noticing the person who doesn't seem to care about accessories, certainly doesn't care that they're matched. And listen and observe for thinking behaviors, that rolling of the eyes, that pause, the or whatever. Yeah, they're thinking. So, want to thank you again for coming to Selling with Style, the Smart Bios. Here's to your sales success. Dr. Nancy Zare signing off.